All right, folks, it is June 21st, 2024. And of course, that means that a lot of things are going on in the world. Hope everybody had a wonderful day on yesterday. I know that I attended an event at the Hayti Heritage Center, which was involving the Pauli Murray Quarter. Because you know, Pauli Murray has just recently been awarded one of those commemorative quarters. It's part of the Quarter series, and it is honoring the various women pioneers and all along those lines. And she was an Episcopalian minister, priest, I believe is the title that they use, and all along those lines. And she was also one of those folks that was definitely engaged in a number of other things, including the fact that she helped write the Brown versus Board of Education decision and all along those lines. So it was great that a lot of people came out to that commemoration. And we definitely had a good time at that event. And actually, one of her descendants was there to talk about what it was like to be part of Pauli Murray's family. And I understand the Pauli Murray Center in Durham, North Carolina, will be having a grand opening and making themselves open to the public on in September. So they're looking forward to that. But they did do the quarter celebration because, like I said, there are a number of other folks that have been honored with quarters. But this was one of the latest ones, and definitely she's got some strong Durham roots as well. So it was good to see that event going on. But now let's get back to the news and all in that space. Rishi Sunak is refusing to be drawn in on questions over election betting allegations. So apparently there's some betting allegations going on in that space and along those lines. And apparently there is a growing rift in Israel between Netanyahu and those in the military over the war in Gaza. So an IDF spokesman says Hamas can't be destroyed, and that drew retort from the prime minister saying that that's the war's goal. And definitely, it looks like there are definitely some odds between the two factions there within Israel and all along those lines. And Israel and Hezbollah are facing off, raising a risk of a wider conflict. And definitely, Hezbollah has issued a directive to terrorists on the Syrian Lebanese border. So, definitely, it looks like the Hezbollah leaders in Lebanon are threatening not just Israel, but also Cyprus. So, that is something else that is going on as well. And the Putin Kim summit looks like it produced an unusual and speedy flurry of glimpses into North Korea. So definitely looks like there is a pact that is going on in that space, but definitely Putin threatens to arm North Korea and warns U.S. allies South against a big mistake. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And Prince William jumps for joy on beach day with his kids in a sweet 42nd birthday photo. So it looks like his birthday was held recently as well. So it looks like he's over there snapping photos with his kids and all along those lines. And it looks like there are nearly 500 or at least 600 Egyptians that died in the Hajj pilgrimage. That's definitely that heat wave, as hundreds more are feared to have died in that pilgrimage in the Islamic community. So definitely that is something else that folks are talking about in the news. And Ukraine's Kharkiv has withstood Russia's relentless strikes, and locals fear what's next. So it definitely looks like there's a lot of things going on in that space. And I know that Nick Palveda is a big fan of Taylor Swift, and it looks like climate activists targeted Taylor Swift's plane spray, uh, and they painted two other private jets as well orange. So it looks like Just Stop Oil targets Taylor Swift's jet and fails apparently to locate it. But apparently they were trying to get this whole thing going on, and they're saying that activists targeting Taylor Swift's jet apparently picked the wrong airport. So maybe they didn't even get the right plane and all along those lines. And the Philippines are secretly reinforcing ship at the center of South China Sea dispute. And like I've said on other stories, apparently the Philippines are saying that only pirates do this, and they're accusing China of using bladed weapons in a major South China Sea escalation. And of course, we do know that not just here, but around the country, there's all kinds of extreme heat. As a matter of fact, there's some in India. So India sees over 100 deaths and 40,000 cases of suspected heat stroke. So definitely that is something that's going on, not just here in the U.S., but there in India as well. As a matter of fact, one Delhi resident says, my body can't take it because there's even brutal nighttime temperatures as well. And of course, it looks like the Iran's reformist candidate is jolting the presidential race with a nuclear pitch. So maybe he's trying to get even further into the nuclear game and all along those lines. And in Armenia, Armenia has recognized a Palestinian state as malnutrition is spreading among the children in Gaza. And Hamas takes Armenian recognition of Palestine as a win against Israel. And like I said, there's not only is India dealing with heat, but they're also dealing with apparently a tainted liquor tragedy, and the death toll from that tainted liquor tragedy has risen to 47, as apparently there are folks that are drinking toxic alcohol and all in that space. And of course, Emmanuel Macron is facing heavy losses after a short campaign. So there are campaigns that are going on all over the world, and they are definitely going in different directions. So the protests against the far right are being held across France and all along those lines. And of course, the attacks of the Jewish girl spurred tensions over anti-Semitism in France, as there was an alleged rape of a 12-year-old Jewish girl, and that has sparked anti-Semitism outcries there in France as well. So both French rivals Macron and Le Pen decried the rape as anti-Semitic attacks send pre-election shockwaves. So that's some of the things that we're seeing in the news. Let's see what's happening in the U.S. Then I'll bring in our regular panelists and see what they've got to say about a number of these things as well. Judge Eileen Cannon is to entertain Trump's claim that the special counsel is unlawful. So definitely it looks like that is something going on as well. The judge in the Trump documents case rejected suggestions to step aside. And definitely it looks like there will be the effort to have the classified documents case to hear challenges to the special counsel's appointment. So we'll see if any of this takes place and all along those lines. And like I said, that hate wave is hitting the U.S. as well as 90 million people are under alert and temperatures are to rise in the mid-Atlantic. So definitely it looks like a lot of people will be dealing with this heat wave. I know here in North Carolina, I think we're supposed to be facing it for a couple of weeks. I know sometimes we talk about gun violence, but looks like there was a burglary violence, and maybe Rick's got some news on this, but it looks like a USC student will not be charged in the fatal stabbing of a homeless person. So the USC student won't face charges for fatally stabbing a burglary suspect. So it looks like that will not be charges that he will have to face. And Trump is outraising Biden after the felony conviction. So Trump raised enough money to erase Biden's cash advantage, according to new FEC filings. And definitely that's something that we'll be seeing and talking about as well. And it looks like a U.S. tourist was killed in a Zambia elephant attack, the second this year. So I guess if you're going to Zambia, you got to be careful about those elephants and all in that space. And a Southwest Boeing 737 inexplicably dropped to less than 500 feet. So that's something else that folks are trying to figure out what's going on with Boeing. And it looks like a CNN Agner is sparring with a GOP lawmaker on Louisiana's 10 Commandment bill. So definitely it looks like that is some folks will be wondering about the constitutionality of that, and maybe Nick, who's back in town, has got some ideas around that, because apparently Louisiana has said that all the school systems have to have the 10 Commandments promptly displayed, and I'm sure that some people will be trying to counter that, or maybe even making some challenges as well. And sometimes people are wondering about folks in prison and all along those lines, and whether Trump will be in prison. But apparently Steve Bannon's bid to stay out of prison has been rejected by the U.S. Appeals Court. So he had an emergency motion to remain free, and it looks like he's lost that appeal. And Trump is floating a green card for non-citizen college graduates. So he says he wants foreign nationals who graduate from U.S. colleges to automatically receive green cards. So he said he would give green cards to all foreign college students at graduation. So I guess they'd be able to stay because they would have these green cards. So maybe he's trying to appeal to them for chances to get their vote as well. And it looks like there was a roller coaster accident, because a Kings Island employee described scenes moment after a roller coaster struck a man. And that was apparently over there in Ohio, and the Ohio man was hospitalized after being struck by a roller coaster, which was the Banshee roller coaster at Kings Island. So, like I said, we'll get to some other news, some other discussions, and I'll bring in the folks. As I also say that the Karen Read murder trial is going on and continuing to go on as well. But let's bring in people that are here. I've got Shaquille here with me. I've got, of course, one of the founders of the network, Nick Palveda, and I've got Rick Rosner. It looks like Lee Rhodes is in the background and all along those lines.
Shaquille looks way too relaxed now.
Oh, he's been relaxed the last couple of days.
There's something wrong. Either he's drummed down what he's been taking, or he's taking something that's relaxing him. Which, by the way, we're getting a lot of viewers on World Edition, which is just very strange. I was checking our demographics.
Well, not after last night's show. I've let the viewers down. Both Jacoby and I will take responsibility for a decrease in the viewership. Because
no, it's an increase.
Him and I.
But if there's an increase, I have no problem blaming you and Jacoby.
Him and I had no disagreements last night. We actually agreed. We were getting along really well. This is not normal. This is not good. No, Jacoby, piss off, dude.
Oh no, right? you guys can't do that anymore. We're gonna need some magic, baby. I'm gonna have to bring in some hardcore Republicans and Democrats. And speaking of which, the Donald.
Apparently it's called being wealthy.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for that, buddy. I'm trying to keep this a secret, Adam. I'm broke, dude. I'm unemployed. I have no job right now.
Do not send Adam a link to anything. I mean, look.
Don't send Adam a link to anything. And all along those lines.
Yeah, why is Adam not here? Adam, why are you not here? Come on.
Yeah, because he doesn't know how to turn on the computer. He's an attorney. They have no clue how to do it.
Yeah, this is why I'm looking so relaxed, you see, because since Nick blew up my laptop, right, or I made the mistake of agreeing to have a conversation with Nick, after the show, like just him and I, and my laptop blew up. It has never been the same since. And so now I'm in one of my lounge rooms, sitting on the couch, chilling. I'm just relaxing. It's brilliant.
Well, apparently you're jealous because Adam is so good looking.
Is a very sick man. I think
I did have a quick question for Rick. Hold on a second. To get back to the news, I did have a quick question.
While you're asking me that question, I'm going to
everything, but I didn't get to it, the video. But apparently there's this accusation. I was hoping Sasha would be here and everything. And it came up a couple of days ago, that there was a bot that's out there that's a Twitter bot that is coming from Russia, but apparently they didn't pay their bill. So now the bot is not as effective and all along those lines, but it was a Russian bot. I'm gonna see if I can get the video, because I did have the video up, and because it was coming from Midas Touch, and we do know that they are a liberal institution, but they were saying that there is a bot that is telling the Russians or the people to actually agree with whatever Trump says, or to kind of encourage people to.
Oh, well, that's good, because he's actually saying some good things. Number one, getting rid of taxes for the low-income people. That's not a bad thing. Number two,
that's a dreadful thing.
I work with a lot of foreign students that come to the United States and they have a hard time staying here, allowing the smart and the brightest to stay here. That's two good hits in a row. And what does Biden come up with? Nothing. So the latest Pod TV LinkedIn poll shows Trump winning 60% to 40%. So anyway, it's.
Have you guys seen? Have you guys seen the new? Or when I say new, it's new to me. Have you seen the new RFK ad?
This guy is. No, I haven't. By the way, RFK is pretty good.
So RFK's got an ad, and if I had a laptop that worked, I'd send you the link. He's got an ad. Very, very interesting, actually, because we tend to see trends go around the Western world. So at the moment, it looks like Reform UK is going to end up being the actual opposition, because the Tories are just in disarray. And that's in large part because people are fed up with the politicians and with what they consider to be the elite. So that'll be very interesting. I mean, I don't think there's any realistic possibility of RFK becoming the president, but he could certainly play a bigger influence in this election than what we're actually thinking. So he came out with an ad, and he quoted like 8 different polls or something, and he said, put against Donald Trump, Biden loses. Put it in a 3-way race, Biden loses. Against Trump, he loses. And against RFK, he loses. but in a two-way race between Trump and RFK, RFK wins. I was like, well, that's really interesting. Now, I don't know whether the polls that he's referring to are true or not, or what you make of that, and certainly there's margins of error. But it's interesting because is there enough people in the United States that are so fed up, and not just with politics, but you remember 18 months ago when I said to you guys, the polls are showing that like 80% of Americans don't want either Biden or Trump, which means there's probably 100% chance it's going to be a rematch between them. Well,
Right.
you know, I'm normally wrong on politics, but I got that one right. It's very interesting to see how many people are so frustrated with both the candidates of the two major parties that they say, you know what, I'm going to vote for RFK. That could actually have a really big impact on the race. And Adam, you're right. Maybe that's a waste of a vote, but maybe he'll be influential enough that he could actually, you know, affect the vote.
Okay, here's the latest poll I've got from LinkedIn. Biden, 22% of the vote. Trump, 63%. RFK, 15%.
But that poll doesn't mean anything because it's not representative. It's only representative of the people who've decided to go to LinkedIn and take the poll.
These are people are on LinkedIn and people that actually were bothering to cast a vote. But the sad part is, Rick, no matter every time I throw a poll out, you know, Trump wins. And so the thing is, I'm going, if you don't think that he has a big pull in the United States, and the LinkedIn people aren't stupid people. You're talking about basically a smart group, and they're pulling for Trump. So, you know, they always say that the Trump people are dumb hicks and the rednecks in the Midwest.
There are some
I think
people
the
who
liberal
vote.
left has really got a real problem on their hands right now. And like I said, I'm experiencing it personally. Next Tuesday, I will not be on the show because your friend Joe Biden funded the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation $80 billion, of which 60 they didn't need, and they need something to do. What they're doing is they're suing small businesses and putting them out of business, like no kidding. And to me, that is definitely a don't vote for Biden vote, because Biden is so stupid that he does stuff like this all the time. And these people, and they're not like, these people are tradespeople, okay? And what he should do is not just fund money and put small businesses out of business because he can do it. So Biden is basically a crook, a criminal, and I got firsthand experience.
But that's what I'm always talking about. That's what I'm always talking about.
Here's what they do. Here's what they do. You don't know about this because you're in Australia. So what happened is, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation.
Do you realize that last year I spent more time in the United States than I did in Australia?
Yeah, well, I'm going to educate you a little bit more. I know you're overflowing with knowledge, but the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, a government agency, is supposed to ensure to make people have their pensions. All well and good. And then what happened is they mismanaged it, which is typical government bureaucracy. So they went $26 billion in the hole. They begged Congress for money. And Joe didn't give him $26 billion. He gave him $80 billion. Now they have more money than they have sense. So they sent their little auditors out auditing plans that have 3 people in it, like literally Joe Small Business. And their goal is to put them out of business. Totally wrong goal, but they just don't give a rat's rear because there's a bunch of attorneys who get their government salary, and they just don't care. And so the thing is, and this is one reason Trump is going to elect. There's too many people like me who are independent who see the dangers of democracy.
Since when have you been independent? Since when? Mark, since when has that Trump fund baby over there been independent? He's been rambling on about being a diehard Democrat for years and how he used to be a Republican. Then he said, "Okay, I'm going to go vote for Trump." Now he says he's an independent.
Computer program.
Wow.
Wow.
Right.
So let's bring in Jacoby because let's see.
Hold on. So I have a pension.
Oh, you have.
And
okay.
I'm retired. I have a pension through the Writers Guild, which probably handles pensions for about 10,000 writers. And I now I don't know as much about it as you do, but for the Writers Guild, it's good that somebody is watching over, and the Writers Guild every year is forced to issue a report about the health of its investments and its ability to fund pensions into the future. And the government has a red light, yellow light, green light classification system. And, the Writers Guild, because we've been able to, we lose a lot of negotiations with the entertainment companies who are kind of scumbags, but at least with regard to health and pension, we've been able to keep our pension system in the green light range. Now, so you're saying that for some, so I mean, so it's good for some pension systems. I don't know about the little ones you're talking about.
No. Rick, let me just jump in on this, right? Because this is precisely the sort of stuff that I'm talking about, right? So if I say to you, right, you last night's show you were talking about writing a book or something, right? And I say to you, hey, look, I think that sounds really good. And Jajovi has a heap of experience in this kind of field. So why don't the three of us get together and set up a company, okay? And we employ like 5 people to help us with the screenplay that we're going to make out of the book we've written, and we go to production and we raise some money. But there's not really many of us. We're just we're a small group of people. There's just like 10, there's under 10 of us in the company, okay? Don't you think that we should be able to compete on fair terms? Like, where's the fairness in letting big companies or the big lobby groups that represent some of the big companies come in and say, well, we're going to try to get these small businesses to like be in a situation where they have to be able to provide all these other services, even though you might actually be getting a better deal if you work for a small business. Like, for example, if you worked for like a mum and dad, cafe or something, right? And you went up to them and said, hey, look, can I have Friday off? I'm sorry, like my kid needs to go to the dentist or something. And like, can I just have like the afternoon off? Generally speaking, your small business owners will probably go, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll work a bit more or something. That's how small businesses generally operate. It's the big businesses that go and tick all those boxes. It's when people talk about the top 1%. And depending on what country you're in, that's anywhere from a $300,000 to $800,000 earnings ratio. Well, okay, yes, that might sound like a lot of money, but I know people that earn $1 million a year here, but they've got like $700,000 in expenses. So okay, they're making $300,000 a year. Okay, cool, yeah, they're wealthy, but then everyone goes, oh, we'll see, that they had $700,000 with deductions, so the top 1% is not paying enough, and that's the problem. It's a distortion of the real reality of the situation. I get it from people who don't have enough, that are struggling to pay the bills, that can't put food on the table, that are worried about, hey, can I pay my gas bill and can I pay my electricity bill? I get it. It's really hard. The problem is that I think that big media and the big lobbyists are pointing at a group of people and saying it's that person's fault instead of looking at what the real issue is. And let me just say one last thing. When you talk about some of these high income earners, you're talking about some bloke that went to trade school and was got a qualification as a plumber, who 10 or 15 years later borrows some money against his house, buys a couple of trucks, and decides to put 5 people on, and is earning a bit more in some years and a bit less in others. Are those really the kinds of people that we want to go after? I don't think so.
But, let me ask Nick, when this federal pension guarantee.
It's called the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation.
All right. So when it goes after, what are you hassling with them about? What's the deal?
It looks like, and this is typical, it happens in small businesses. The guy took money out of his pension account and because he was running short of cash. All right. And you see this all the time in small businesses. They go, well, where can I get some? And technically, it's a technical foul. You can't do that. So the remedy should be put the money back and pay a penalty and move on, not file a federal lawsuit and drag everybody through a court and try to put the person out of business.
Nick, hold on a second. Nick, you earlier blamed Biden on that, but
typical liberal government weaponizing the judiciary.
Nick, you earlier blamed Biden for that.
Why do they even call themselves liberal? Why do they even call themselves liberal? What's liberal about their policies?
It's not liberal.
Why do these people that want so much more government regulation? Why did they get to co-opt the term liberal? That's not what liberalism is.
It's not liberal. No, it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
I'm a liberal.
Regulation. So
I'm a liberal. This shit ain't liberal.
I'm going to be listening to a bunch of government lawyers who are flying out to Raleigh. They flew out to Utah to meet with some of our people. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a group of people that are basically they're blue collar workers out of business. And I'm sitting there witnessing this front and center by your friend Joe Biden. I don't know how you guys can support this guy.
But how are you saying it's Joe Biden when some of those legislatures are actually
Because
done
he's the
by
one
the
who
Congress, which
funded
is actually Republican run?
Mark. He's the one who
the Republican idea.
him and the Democrats wrote the check.
Just like it's Republicans that are responsible for the border crisis. I'm guessing, right?
No, I'm just saying
I
that
got
you can't blame
one
one.
more question.
Come on, bro.
Question for Nick.
Come on now.
My point is they're both effective.
I don't know how.
Yeah,
look,
both political teams in every single country are responsible for all sorts of things. But come on now, like you can't gaslight us that much and say,
No,
okay, you see all this stuff the Republicans have been complaining about for the last 4 years. Well, it's actually Republicans' fault. They're the ones that did it. Please.
You can't just strictly blame the Democrats. That was my point. So you kind of agree with me because I'm saying
All
that
right, come on,
it's both
everybody.
parties that are
Let Jacoby talk and then let me go.
Yeah.
Oh, if we have to.
So just a quick couple of key. Well, first question. You said what was the agency you're talking about, Nick?
It's called the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. Actually, Dave Walker used to be the head of it years ago.
Okay, because
by the way, I've worked with these people for 20 years. They've been normal until Joe Biden got elected.
I just needed the title of it because right now you're trying to pin an agency that was created by Richard Nixon on Joe Biden.
Absolutely.
That agency has been there since 1974. You had nothing to say until this year.
I've worked with these people for 20 years. What you're doing is
playing politics.
And hadn't had a problem until Joe got elected.
Point that out, Nick. You're just playing
I'm just going to point that out, Toby. No
problem. What you're pointing at is absurd. That is absolutely absurd.
Now everybody's wanting to overtalk just because I point out a fact. Why are you guys so sensitive when I point out a fact?
You don't have any facts, dude. You don't even know the name of the agency, let alone have any facts. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not in this industry. You've got no idea.
Hold on, Shaq.
Bro, you've got no idea what you're talking about, Jacoby. Do you want to try and correct Nick on how the agency that you know nothing about works, Shaq?
It's because you guys want to overtalk people instead of listening. I let you sit there. Why not be patient and raise your hand like both Rick and I had?
Okay.
Well, because we've been learning from you, Toby. Because we've been learning from you. Right? So we've been learning how to do this stuff from you.
Can I say something, Shaq? Can I say something real quick?
You must.
Thank you. So the agency that you're complaining about was created in 1974 up under Richard Nixon. That agency has been there.
Your Google searches must be going off with that background.
You're going to point. Shaq, you didn't even know when it was created.
Did you ask me when it was created? Did you ask me when it was created? Who created it? You don't think that I know a bit about what Richard Nixon did?
What did Richard Nixon do?
Really? Tell us all about how the problem that Nick is complaining about today is Richard Nixon's fault, because I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the spin that you're going to put on it.
All you do is you just want to talk yourself. So please let me speak just one second.
Defend the indefensible.
Let me have the floor just 1 second. So the agency that you're talking about was created in 1974. That was created through Richard Nixon. It was a split off. It's been there for a while. So yes, the agency has issues just like any other government agency. Yes, both parties have dealt with that agency. But right now, the way that it's going, because it's up under Joe Biden, there was no complaints when it was doing the same thing up under Trump. Why? Because the media puts it out there and there's an agitation up under Biden right now at this moment in time. Yes, again, I'm not saying that it was completely perfect. I'm just saying that there were actual problems then, just like immigration. There have been problems for a very, very long time, and it's just been kicked down the road. So even though as Mark pointed out factually, yes, it's been a problem with immigration for a long time. And then when there was an actual bipartisan bill, because nothing has happened since Reagan, there was a bipartisan bill on the floor. It was actually Trump and the GOP that actually nixed that deal that was based on that. If we talk about the taxes and so on and so forth that we were talking about for a little bit, it's a false premise to say, well, you're just trying to tax the plumber itself. It's not the plumber that makes a lot of money. We're talking about Jeff Bezos and so on and so forth, who are actually the 1%ers who actually do have those tax loopholes, which we all agree are there, and we're trying to figure out ways to overcome them. And the same thing when we're talking about corporations and the tax loopholes corporations take advantage of. We all agree that they're there. It's just a matter of fixing those loopholes to bring money and finances back to the actual country. And yes, if you talk about even, the taxes, even if we talk about with Reagan, how Reagan lowered the taxes, but then he subsequently raised them again because it blew a hole in the budget. Under every current president or every recent current president right now, in terms of the budget itself, the budget actually does better up under Democrat presidents than it has done up under Republican presidents.
Everything you said there is irrelevant.
Everybody, because I just
Everything you
stand up
said
with
is
Bill.
totally
Listen,
irrelevant.
Jeremy, you should get Oscar, my friend. The fact that you can say that with a straight face is really absolutely fantastic.
Right now, let me finish this one last thing. Let me finish this one last thing.
It's irrelevant.
And then it is not irrelevant because if we're talking about going back to Trump, who put up 25% of the budget. Yes, Biden has put up a lot because he had the COVID response.
I'm talking about
but it has not been that 25% that Trump.
Let's talk about Jimmy Carter. Why don't we talk about Jimmy Carter? Okay, I mean, everything you say is irrelevant and deflective. You're worse than the Republicans. Okay, what I'm talking about is what's going on today. The PBGC has changed. After 20 years I've worked with them, I've never had a problem.
No, but hold on a second, because I got a question for Rick. Because I did see your hands up, Rick. Because I did have a question for everybody here on the panel. Hold on a second, because I did have a question for everybody.
Rick, hang on, Mark. Before you ask the question, let Rick have a go at saying something. I'd really like to talk about how wrong Jacoby is, but let's let Rick have a go at saying something, and then we can jump on.
I have one more question for Nick. It seems like what's happening with you is overreach, but
yes.
Correct me if I'm deluded, but it seems like the biggest problem with U.S. pensions is when private equity firms buy up companies with fat pension funds and then squeeze all the money out of those and for their own gain, and then let the company go bankrupt. Is that a deal? And does this pension benefit corporation help fight something like that?
All the pension benefit guarantee corporation does is they insure, like you have a pension with SAG, they insure that if your pension is mismanaged by your trustees, which can happen, they come in and they make sure that you're paid your pension because your trustees mismanagement. It's an insurance company. That's all they do. That's their function. They have changed. That's what I'm trying to say. Jacoby, you can go back to 1974. It's irrelevant. For 20 years, I've worked with this agency and had no problems, okay? Because they weren't overfunded. They were basically underfunded, and they didn't have the extra money to run around putting small businesses out of business. Then Uncle Joe wrote big checks. Now, all of a sudden, the last couple of years, they're going after each one of these small businesses in the attempt, because I asked one of my CPAs, what's going on? They go, well, the PBGC wants to put these small businesses out of business. So it's not just me, it's everybody in the pension industry has watched Uncle Joe, for whatever reason, wanting to put small businesses out of business. And the thing is, how do you stop them? You guys have no clue. You cannot stop government attorneys. If they come after you, they're like a pit bull, and they grab a hold of you, and there's nothing to stop them, trying to chew your leg off.
This is precisely the issue that these big corporations are able to afford. These big corporations are able to afford to have.
Because Trump hates abortion.
Wait,
Colorado,
Nick,
The
who
big
funds the
corporations.
PBGC?
Toby,
you know, and
Who
this is
funds the
I'll stop you.
1974. This is
These
happening.
big
Nick,
corporations.
who funds the
I'll go to
PBGC?
Barcelona. Goodbye, guys.
Who
I'll
funds
see
the
you.
PBGC, Nick?
Oh, it's funded by insurance premiums that, like, believe it or not, Rick pays an insurance
So
premium or a trustee pays insurance premiums to the PBGC, and they mismanage it like most typical government
But
agencies.
if you're saying that the
And
insurance,
they're
if,
funded,
so
then they
how
run
are
the
you
government
incorporating Biden if it's funded by the insurance premiums?
Because just like every one of your government agencies out there, because you don't work in the government, you don't work with these people, they mismanaged it. Okay. And when they mismanage it, they go, oh, we're 26 billion in the hole. Come save me. So then they ran to Congress, and Congress wrote a check, but not for 26 billion. They wrote
But
it for
Biden
80
doesn't
billion.
control the checkbook.
Oh,
All right,
we have 80 billion.
Jacoby, can the rest of us
So
have
the companies that are out
can the
there.
rest of us that know a little bit about this subject actually say something about it? Okay, we've got your position. Biden's a saint. He's
No,
amazing
I
and
never said that.
perfect,
I
and
never
no
said
criticism
that.
of his
No,
is
that's
ever going to fly in your eyes.
Yeah,
Let the
I
rest
can
of us
state my
let
own
the rest of us have a conversation about the issues that Nick has brought up.
Shaq, I can state my own position. Please don't.
You have.
Not. No, I have not.
You have said your position. You don't know what you're talking about, and you are responding. And you are responding to people who do know about this area by saying stuff just because you feel that the person that you prefer as president is somehow being criticized.
Did I state that Biden was a saint?
Here we go. Jacoby, you know what? I'm going to go. You can have the rest of the show, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you, mate. See you. But just because you'll watch the viewers who actually want to hear what the solutions are, what things can be done, what political positions can be taken, and you don't want to hear it because you're so sensitive.
Shaquille and Jacoby, just hold on a second, because the question I was going to ask Nick was actually different, but it's something that all of you know, including the probably Nick knows it as well, because I was getting off the pension topic. Because
But why? Why? No. Why? I wanted to respond to something that that Nick said. I waited. No. You let me finish. I waited for Jacoby to come out with his comments about a subject he knows nothing about. Then Rick came back with a few questions, and I waited. Then I tried to respond after Nick had a reply. You wouldn't let me. Then Jacoby comes in, and now you want to ask a question to change the topic. Because we've got to spend a whole heap of time waiting for Jacoby to give us some bullshit response about how could this be Joe Biden? How could this be that?
Adam
because any criticism, as usual, any criticism of his political views or of the side that he aligns himself with must be shot down. It's absurd. It's absurd. You know why Adam and I get along so well? Because Adam and I, on a number of legal issues, don't agree with each other, and we sit there and we send text messages to each other and say, well, what if we do this? Or what if I interpret the law that way? Or what about the ethics of this position, right? And we don't necessarily agree. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't. And sometimes we just play the devil's advocate against each other's positions because it's something to do. But we can't do that with you, Jacoby, can we? Because you are such a prissy little bitch that any kind of slight against your political side must be shot down. Yeah. Good on you, mate. Good on you, mate. Well done.
All I asked was Nick to explain why the PBGC, which is funded by insurance premiums.
And he did explain it. He did explain it, and you didn't want to hear it. He did explain it, you didn't want to hear it. It's exactly the same as you. It's exactly the same as you arguing with me.
Connection is there when Biden doesn't control.
It's exactly the same, Jacoby, as when you argue with me about taxes, right? I deal with tax structuring for international investors all day, every day. It's one of the core things that my investors come to me and talk to me about when I've got to structure their investments. But yet, when I talk about, as I have done for years, can you shut up for a second? Can you shut up for a second?
No.
When I sit there, no, you're not. Okay, well, we'll talk over each other so nobody can hear.
We're going to make it about.
No, we'll keep talking over each other so that way nobody else can hear and nobody else can participate. Right?
We're going to talk about other things.
Yeah, I'm going to finish my sentence.
Toby, let's hear at least from Shaquille about this pension.
Let's hear from Adam.
Pensions.
Well, I'd like to let Shaquille finish first, and then I will contribute.
That's not on the agenda. You have to.
No. He's yielding his time to me, right? Isn't that what you do in politics?
All right.
When international investors come to me to place investments in Switzerland or Liechtenstein or the UK or in the US, we have to deal with the same sorts of tax issues. And the point that Jacoby and many people that say that tax rates have to go up keep missing, no matter how much we tell them it's not the case, is that the wealthiest people in the world aren't paying the taxes and aren't going to pay more taxes if you just raise the progressive
right.
tax rates. It doesn't work that way.
That's
you
right.
You can make the tax rate 500%. Jeff Bezos is not going to pay it. So this is the problem. And Jacoby, people like you that aren't prepared to listen to the technical explanations as to how these things work, you're the problem. People like you are the problem. I'll be quiet on that.
I said tax loopholes. I didn't say raise taxes. Glad that you listened to what I said.
Jacoby, they're not tax loopholes. Much of the stuff that happens are not tax loopholes at all.
Adam is talking.
We'll get Adam. A lot of them is put into the Internal Revenue Code so that people go that direction. Go on. Adam.
So, well, I'm not an expert on this subject, but what I will say is this. Progressive taxation in the United States doesn't work because the rich do not ultimately end up paying those taxes. That's a fact. What we need to do is actually reduce taxes, particularly on corporations. Now, Jacoby, I have a question for you. You seem like you are a successful person, and you seem like you have a very stable and happy family. Why are you successful?
Why am I successful?
Yes.
A myriad of reasons. I'm not sure.
Why do you have a wonderful family? Why are you successful in what you do?
For a myriad of reasons, but I do not like making it personal about each other. I like talking about a topic. So,
well, my point is that none of your success is due to anything the government has ever done for you.
Incorrect.
It is because of what you have done for yourself and the choices that you have made. And the problem with liberals is that many of them believe the government should solve societal problems when, in fact, the government is incompetent at everything it does. Go to your local DMV if you want, or try universal health care, and you'll see where that'll get you. You're successful, and you have a wonderful family because of you and the choices you made. I'm not making it personal. I'm stating a fact.
Okay.
And it shocks me that you would be a liberal who advocates for such government involvement in people's lives when, in fact, the secret to your success is the lack of government interference. That's called Jeffersonian democracy. That's called free markets. And that's called basing your success on individual choices, not circumstance.
So just to respond to that really quick,
that sounds like a libertarian idea.
Since it was a direct, hey, you're so just to point out, if I were to talk about all the government involvement that was in my life, which is in most lives and everything that actually help individuals out, from my father actually worked for a government company. So therefore, the government helped there. The actual home loan that we got was federally backed. So therefore, the government helped out there. The roads, I did not build any road outside that I traveled to work from work. So that's a government thing. The schools that I went to were all public schools. That's a government thing. The school loans that I got were all federally backed. That's a government thing. So it's not the idea that government itself is the reason. No, the idea that we have to look at is the government itself should be creating parameters that everybody has that equal opportunity. And that's the whole ideal behind it. It's not a liberal or conservative thing. It's just that government should not be, hey, I'm going to give you this key to your home. No, the government should be there so that banker cannot rob every individual out there.
Now it's the bank.
Why is it that the children?
Now it's the bank's fault. Can I say, Adam? Can I say, Jacoby has actually.
I agree with you.
Adam, Jacoby has actually won me over. You've been going on for a few minutes. Let's go now.
Finish my point.
Jacoby's actually won me over, Adam.
My
because
point.
Here we go. Yeah, okay, we'll give you 5 minutes to finish your point.
Finish my point.
20 minutes.
Based on,
Yeah.
I've been going for about a minute and a half. So based on based on race,
In dog years.
no, it actually shows up top. I started at.
I'm kidding, Jatovi. Go ahead.
Oh, here we go.
Again,
Come on, Jatovi. There's 6 of us here.
The different race, sex, gender, so on and so forth. So government should play a referee role, just like how, as an analogy, just like we may all enjoy right now, the NHL playoffs are going on right now. And the game is tonight, Edmonton and Florida. The referees are the government. The clock operators are the government. The people that have success and that are doing really well are the individuals or the players on the ice playing. The ref didn't put the puck in the goal. Connor McDavid did. So that is the way that we should look at government. The best games that we watch on TV, any sport-wise, are the ones where the ref.
So your analogy doesn't even make sense.
Jatovi, let me tell you something.
Your analogy doesn't even make sense, right? Because what if your analogy was to apply in real life, what would happen is the best player that got the goal would then have the goal taken off him and given to the other team to make things more equal. But I will say this to you. You have actually won me over. You have actually won me over. I think that Republicans and conservatives are absolutely wrong in not giving, in not raising taxes. I think you're absolutely right, because if you are the best product of the public school education system of the United States, there is no doubt it needs more funding.
Oh, wow. Look at that ad hominem attack. That was so good.
Was that an attack?
Man,
That's
why you're a single guy living at home.
Can I just
Living at home. Living at home. I own the house. What do you mean living at home? Are you serious? Do you know how many houses I own? Do you know how many houses I own? Would you like me to do? Here, I'll put the camera around. I'll take you for a walkthrough. Did you want to see? You want to see where I live?
One second. We got Rick and I agree with what Kim just said. But Rick, what you got to say?
So I just have more questions for Nick. Like you said in the past, the pension benefit guarantee that somebody would get in trouble for having borrowed from their pension fund. And then the government comes after them and they say, sorry, they pay the money back. And is there any chance that in the case, your case, and in the cases of similar people right now, that you go to the court and you say, look, in the past, it's worked like this. We're paying it back. We're sorry. And is there any chance the government will back off, or what does the government want? You say it wants to.
By the way, you're asking a really good question, Rick. The answer is I don't know. Okay, because the thing is, in the past, what happens? They would audit for 20 out of the 23 years. They would audit. They'd find discrepancies. They'd ask you to correct them. You correct, and then they distribute the funds. The last 2 years, they audit. Then they sue in federal court, federal district court. They take everybody through depositions. They do interrogatories. They send out subpoenas. They basically weaponize the judicial system for, it wouldn't be so bad, except you're talking about 3 plumbers who work in a company. These are blue collar people who are trying to save money for retirement. And they really don't have the $100,000, $200,000 to spend on legal fees to defend themselves.
Well, what does the government want? What do they want from you guys?
It's not what the government wants, Rick. It's the big corporations.
I'm not going to live
here. It's the big corporations that have an incentive to want to.
23 years.
It's the big corporations that run some of these big pension funds that want to try to make it harder for people to try and get independence. Now, you made a point earlier where you said that the Screenwriters Guild has a pension plan and it's working pretty well. Well, when you say that, it's working pretty well compared to what? What's the reference point?
The reference
it's like for example, let me finish. It's like, for example, here in Australia, we have a thing called superannuation. The majority of the superannuation fund managers or the management of the fund management companies are former Labor union leaders. Now, that doesn't qualify you to make great investment decisions. So if we compare our program to the program in the world that is the most similar to it, which is in Denmark, the Danish funds actually have returned higher by a fairly substantial margin over the last 30 years than what the funds have in Australia. If you ask most people who are the beneficiary of super funds, especially industry super funds, they will say, hey, this has worked pretty well. But just because you feel like it's working well for you at the moment, that doesn't mean that it couldn't have worked better. And that's the problem with lobbying. Lobbying ends up becoming a hidden tax on everybody else. And it's normally the smaller people that end up having to pay for it because they don't have the sort of buying power and influence that the big companies do.
That's
So
100% correct.
Hold on.
Can I speak
Let me answer his question. I've read a bunch of
you guys really
hold it. And what it's the metrics are that they look at the investments, they look at how much money has been set aside, and they analyze whether the pension will be able to meet the likelihood that it'll be able to meet its future obligation as writers retire.
Right.
Rick, let me tell you, any idiot could be able to do that with the sort of money that goes into these big pension funds, right? I had a very good look at the California state government employees pension funds a few years ago, right? Any moron who works in finance in any country in the world would be able to replicate those returns and then beat them. That's just the reality. So the fact that it's working doesn't mean that it's good. Let's go to Adam.
Let's go to Adam. Yeah,
well, I'll just say briefly that I went to college at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, and I knew a lot of
Trojans.
I was a Trojan, yeah, and a lot of my friends.
University of spoiled children. Go on.
Yes, a lot of my friends were the sons and daughters of Hollywood actors, Hollywood producers who were worth tens, if not hundreds of millions. Many of those kids were not successful. They were addicted to drugs. They had a very bad trajectory in life. The analogy I'm trying to make is, it doesn't matter if the government gives you money for student loans. It matters what your choices are, how you deal with money, how you do in school. Okay? Your choices, not your circumstances, determine your destiny. And the less that the government is involved, the better off people are. Let's look at taxes on corporations under Biden. The more you tax corporations, the less job opportunities you're going to have for people. The more you increase the minimum wage, the more you're going to have competition for that minimum wage among higher qualified people, and therefore the people it's designed to benefit will be left out. When government gets involved, prosperity declines. And it takes me back to what I said about Jatovy. Jatovy is successful because of Jatovy, not because of a government aid program or because daddy was worth $100 million.
But
Your
Adam,
choices matter. And what you liberals fail to understand is you blame everything under the sun for those who are not successful. You don't talk about single parent families. You don't talk about the tragedy of single parent families on delinquency and lack of opportunity. You place no personal responsibility on the individual. And let me tell you something. The way to get wealthy in this country is to take responsibility for your choices and to get rich slow.
Adam, just really quickly. Hold on a second.
Mark, let me
You guys can interrupt me all you want, but you cannot.
Let me respond to Adam, please. Let me respond to Adam, please.
I know you want to respond, and I'll definitely let you respond. But Adam, I just have a quick question, because that's the question, because you just brought it up. I am personally of the opinion, and most of us here, on some form or another, are been involved in some way or other. I personally think that one of the things that North Carolina did wrong was get rid of tax credits, and tax credits is a government program and everything. So I think that's the case. But the government did wrong, because Louisiana, Mississippi, a lot of other places are doing more filming, because North Carolina used to be third in the film industry, third or fourth, I think, and everything.
It doesn't matter what the government does.
There's less filming taking place here.
It doesn't
Can
matter.
I?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Adam. No, you go for it. I'll come up.
It doesn't matter what the government does. My father was taxed and taxed and taxed on his investments and on his capital gains. He made choices that enabled him to live with that reality and still get wealthy. It comes down to success in the United States is the product of freedom, and freedom requires you to take responsibility for your own choices and happiness. The more government gets involved, the more people lose their wealth, lose their opportunity.
So
let me just come in. I was waiting. Let me just come in. I just find it fascinating that we are hearing a lot of young people today complaining about the inequity in the world. They're complaining about not being able to afford to go to university, being able to buy houses, being able to enjoy the same sort of lifestyle that their parents do. We also know that over the last sort of 50, 60 years, especially the last 30, we've had a massive increase in the amount of globalization. But there's no conversation about that. Now, let's assume that Jatovi's opinion that government is to be thanked for his success in at least part of his success. Let's just assume that is actually correct from a philosophical perspective. Jatovi, shush. Just shush for a minute, okay? Let's assume just for a moment that he's correct. What the United States, as does every other Western country, what they do is I can set up a business in exactly the same location and exactly the same kind of business that Jatovi has, and I can undercut him and not pay the same sorts of taxes. I'm getting all the same benefits from the community-funded things, but because I'm a foreigner, I'm not going to have to pay taxes there. If I buy a house right next door to Jatovi's, and in 5 years' time the house has gone up in value by $200,000, guess what? Because I'm not a tax resident of the United States, the capital gain is going to be taxed from the place where I'm taxable, not in the United States. All I've got to do is move to a country that doesn't have capital gains tax, and I get to take all that money for nothing. Where's the fairness in this? And that's what I don't understand about these tax advocates who keep saying we want to close the loopholes, but when you try to point out what the loopholes are, they complain that I'm a Republican. Last question, though, for you, Adam. Do you reckon the Gamma Phi Beta girls are still as fun today as they were back when you were at USC?
Adam, before you answer, since I was referenced like multiple times between you and Shaq, can I have at least 1 minute to respond and then allow Rick to go?
There's only 2.5 minutes left. You want 1 minute off it?
No, I want 30 seconds. So you get a minute, I get 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Just a quick.
And 20 seconds extra for the Gamma Phi Beta girls.
When am I going to be able to talk?
Hopefully never.
I just wanted to say one quick thing since I was referenced both times. So one, I never said that government itself was the reason. It's just like everybody else. Everybody utilizes the different services that help them out. And we don't actually think of them helping us out, but those are the things that are in the back of those are our safety nets. And those are necessary, from even the police department, which is a government entity, to our military, which is a government entity. All these things are things that we don't think about as government entities, but they're there. And then in terms of the tax rate,
but you complain about the police department, so why can't I complain about the tax department? What's the difference?
You could not be quiet for just 1 minute. You could not be quiet for 1 minute. That's all I wanted was 1 minute.
All right. Go.
Okay, so just to finish out real fast, just the tax rates themselves. We are an aging society, so our Medicare, all the health things are going to be necessary. Those things are backed by a government entity, so therefore those things are going to have to be paid for. Yes, tax loopholes are going to have to close, and there are different tax loopholes that actually are taken advantage of, which we've all agreed before. I don't know why we're acting as if we didn't. And then I've got 2 seconds. And so, yes, we're going to at some point going to have to raise taxes, but those tax loopholes are the main focus right now. Take it away.
All right. So here's what I'll say.
All right, let me say, I looked up the Writers Guild pension returns. The past 30 years, they say they've averaged 10% returns, which is pretty good. They're 40% in stocks, 20% in government bonds, 10% in real estate, 6% in junk bonds. It seems like, and they're 88% funded, which is green light area. Now
they made a 10% non-compounding average return of 10% per annum over the last 30 years.
Seconds at least.
This is a good return, Rick. Come on.
I don't know. I mean, they also have to protect against risk. Yeah, Adam.
I think you guys are missing the point. I'm a college professor, and it took me 2 years to get a job as a college professor. I got rejected from so many jobs, and I was literally told the reason was because I was a white male. Literally told to me by people on these hiring committees. But I still managed to become a college professor. My point by analogy is that you shouldn't be focused on what the government does or doesn't do. There's always a way around it if you make the right choices, the right investments, and live a responsible life. So don't focus on what the government does. But if you do, you should hope the government is doing a lot less, not a lot more.
Well, we're going to get on that. It's about time to end. And